Hello and welcome to Long Beach Lens. I'm your host, Derek J. Simpson, Executive Director of the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. We have a very special guest in the studio today. She is a councilwoman for the 3rd District of Long Beach, and she is a friend. Please join me in welcoming Suzie Price. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Derek?
Great, great. Thank you for braving the freeways and rushing here. I know you have a full day today.
I do. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I say friend because you were one of those people that once you became councilwoman, you were always so approachable and always so engaging whenever I would come to meet with you or your staff or see you at council. So just thank you personally before we get started for just being such an amazing leader and an amazing person in our community.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. The feeling is totally mutual, and one of the benefits of the position has been meeting people like you and learning about what you do. So thank you.
And I'm sure that's always a learning process, huh, with the amazing people that you meet within your district and within this community, I would say.
Every day. Every day I'm inspired and surprised and challenged by the people that I meet, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I was reflecting on this interview and I thought the last 2 turkey trots, I've gone out there early on Thanksgiving, and there you and your husband and your 2 boys are right at the front of that line.
Yes.
So your calendar is pretty full when it comes to the weekends. And
I used to run the turkey trot, but
Oh,
you know,
wow.
age has a way of making you walk the turkey trot,
Yes.
and that's okay. I'm just
Yes.
happy to be there.
Yes, absolutely. How has life changed? What are some of the most dynamic changes that come to mind since you've become councilwoman? Because you're already high profile in your day job, so to speak, but how has it changed for you?
Well, I think you just touched on it a moment ago with just the number of events and activities that are a part of my life now. I'm definitely a lot busier, but in a good way. I can certainly decline a lot of things, but I don't, because every single time I go to an event or I go to a program, it gives me an opportunity to learn about the organization that's hosting it. I always meet really interesting people, and me being there ultimately is me showing my support for all these endeavors that take place throughout our city. You know, I could always send a letter or I can always send a staff person, but I feel like me going there as often as I can to show my personal support means a lot to people. And so my life has changed because pretty much every hour of the day is accounted for 7 days a week. And that's okay, because I get to do a lot of amazing and fun and creative things that I wouldn't get to do in any other job.
Well, I can attest to the fact that that's the case, because I think I've gotten either a text or an email from you about 10 or 11 at night. So I'm like, this lady never goes to sleep.
I'm quickly getting that reputation. People now say they get texts from me at weird hours of the day, to the point where I've gotten to the point where I'll save things as a draft and send it out in the morning, just so I don't seem like such a freak.
So when you talk about learning things, and I'm sure that your agenda is quite full, what are some of the things that stand out in your mind that you've learned about Long Beach that maybe as a citizen, Suzie Price, you didn't know, but then when you became councilwoman, you're like, wow, that's pretty special. Anything that stands out?
2 things. The first is the amount of nonprofit organizations and the great work that they do in this city. I had no idea before I got on council. I mean, I was very involved with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I was very involved with my local PTA. But beyond that, I did not know that there are thousands of people every day in this city who go to work for the sole purpose of trying to make life better for another human being or another child or animals. I mean, it's just amazing to me that people are so driven by a need that they've identified that they're committing their life to making that issue better. And so to me, just learning how much genuine, authentic love and compassion there is in our community for very many causes, different kinds of causes, is really inspiring to me. And I tell my husband all the time, you know, we try to volunteer at so many different things just because we'd never been exposed to it before. I volunteered at Meals on Wheels. I volunteered at homeless churches that offer homeless programs and food service. And we try to volunteer very often, like once a month or so we do a volunteer activity with a different organization, because it's so enlightening to me how great it is. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just really the breadth of issues and challenges that the city faces every day.
Right.
between the port, between our economic profile, between our diverse neighborhoods. I mean, the city just touches on every single policy issue that's affecting the nation. We have it right here. And so just really understanding that this isn't, to me, this isn't just a city council, because this is a city that handles so many different issues that whoever's serving on council really has to have a very broad view of the many challenges that are facing our nation.
It's quite a bit of information to digest, and as I said, you have a day job, and then you have a mom job, and then you have a wife job, and how do you process it all to make sure that you're always in tune with all the key points that you need in order to make the great decisions that you make?
Well, I think for me and for everyone else, it's really about prioritizing and time management. So I really am a very scheduled person, and that doesn't make me the most kind of easygoing person, but that's just not really my personality. You know, I'm a person who's in my happy place when I have a schedule, when I have a list of things to do. Every night I make a list of what I need to get done the next day. And I usually don't go to sleep until I get everything off of that list. Right. Now, sometimes I don't get everything on that list, and I've learned over the last 3 years that you just have to let that go. Right. And if you don't respond to a resident in 24 hours, but you do in 48 hours, that's okay. And that's something that I've had to kind of adjust to, because to expect myself to perform perfectly in every one of those functions would be expecting too much of myself. And so I've really learned to let that go.
Well, I teach StrengthsFinders nationally, and one of the themes in StrengthsFinders is an achiever, and achievers have to make lists, either mental lists or written lists.
Yes.
And so I guess the key with you then is that I got to make sure I get on that list and I'm golden, right?
If you're on that list, you're golden. I tell my staff, you know, give me a list of who I have to call at the end of the day, or tell me what you need me to do and I will get it done. And so for me, I just operate best that way, and I'm very, you know, organized that way. Yes.
Let's talk collaborations for a moment, because you mentioned all the nonprofits, and none of us can do what we do on our own. It takes sometimes leveraging the strengths of others. And so when you hear the word collaboration, how do you feel that that's working between your office and the community, and between your office and your colleagues? How do you feel that's working out for you?
Well, I think I didn't realize the importance of collaboration until I got this job. As a trial attorney, as a prosecutor, you work representing the people of the state of California, but you really operate independently in terms of the facts of your case and the presentation of that evidence. Once I got on council, I realized you really have to work with other people to get things done. You can't decide what your strategy is going to be and execute that like you can in a trial. And so I've learned and continuing to improve. I certainly haven't mastered it, but with community for us, I mean, there's not a single issue that we will make a decision on as a team without engaging our community. That doesn't mean we're going to agree with our community all the time, because you take 5 community members, 3 of them are going to feel one way, 2 of them are going to feel another way. But we think just hearing them and listening to them and allowing them to listen to us and having an adult, you know, debate about things is important. So we try to collaborate in that way. And I always tell my constituents, look, I'm always going to be honest with you about what I think. I'm going to listen to you, but I'm not going to just tell you what you want to hear for us to get through a meeting and everybody goes home feeling, you know, fantastic, and then they're surprised that a vote came out a certain way. I'm going to be honest with you. So having honest community engagement is important to me. With my colleagues, you know, I've learned that there are certain issues that colleagues may be more passionate about than others. So if I'm going to be bringing an item, regardless of my personal relationship with the individual, if it's an issue that's going to affect their district, if it's an issue that their residents care about, I invite them to participate on the item with me. Because to me, it's not about personal relationships, it's about what we're providing to the city as a whole. It's not about a political agenda, it's about service to our residents. So if I have a parking issue, for example, then I'll reach out to my colleagues in parking impacted districts. Regardless of personal relationships or political alliances, I'll say, this impacts your residents, let's work together. And I think that has served me well. It allows me to kind of operate with my own agenda in terms of what my residents want, but also being mindful of what their residents, my colleagues' residents, may also want to hear about and see.
Do you find that there are particular challenges, because you're very straightforward with that, and I think that that's an admirable way to approach it, and I respect that. But do you find that others would prefer to hear what they want to hear, and it challenges how you are able to work with them more closely?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and there are certain areas. One, the people, generally speaking, are apathetic about public officials, and they're distrusting of them. Yeah. And the reason for that is because they've gotten used to the fact that you're not going to have, generally speaking, a public official tell you that's totally unreasonable. Right. We're not going to pursue that because that's unreasonable. Yeah. Where if that's what they're thinking, that's what they should be saying. Yeah. They shouldn't be saying, well, that's a very interesting point. Let me look into that and let me explore that. And then they turn around and they vote in completely the opposite way. Right. I'd rather say, you know what, I'm hearing what you're saying, but in my opinion, that's not consistent with the data, and here's where I'm headed. I think that kind of straight talk between residents and public officials could change the culture in terms of that, because they get a little surprised, like, oh, you seemed kind of abrasive when you said that, and there's a difference between abrasive and disagreeing.
Just the facts.
Just the facts. So so that's with the constituents. With colleagues, a lot of my colleagues are a little bit more politically savvy than I am. This is my first exposure into politics. I know that there's a lot of discussions and things that take place, before council meeting, as they should. A lot of discussions about, how can we tweak things so that it fits everybody. And I'm trying to get better at that. But as a prosecutor, everything you do is right there in front of the jury. Right. And so I've kind of learned that, every once in a while you need to have those discussions and figure out what people's concerns are before they're in a situation where they have to answer very publicly about their concerns, because maybe they just want to explore an idea. And so I've kind of learned that sometimes the way I am needs to be massaged a little bit in light of, how people are used to functioning in these positions.
Right. Wow, it's so much to cover, and that's such good information, but we're going to have to take a short break, okay?
Sounds good.
We're going to take this short break. When we come back, we will continue our discussion with Councilwoman Suzie Price. Stay tuned for more of Long Beach Lens.
They have offered me opportunities. They allow me to utilize equipment that they have. I get to practice more so than I would with the supplies that I have with the equipment that I have.
I'm learning how to work again with more people and how to actually work in an actual studio and working with the cameras and hands-on.
I remember they said LAMP as in leadership. I learned a little bit about how to become a leader, as well as communicating with the people I work around with.
After being here, all the teaching, all the skills I've been learning, it became easy. It's like learning the alphabet. And from we start from the bottom and then we go up. We start learning all these new skills. Things that we thought that it was, really hard becomes easy.
And welcome back to Long Beach Lens. I'm Derek J. Simpson. With us in the studio is Councilwoman Suzie Price of the 3rd Councilmanic District in Long Beach. And I just love, as I was reflecting on what you were saying, it's the straightforwardness that you bring. And as you said, it's not so much being abrasive, it's just speaking to the truth. And not everyone's ready for the truth. And I applaud you for going about it that way, because at least people know where you stand when they walk away. There's many things that you've done that I know you're proud of, and some things that are challenges within your district. I'm going to go through a quick list here, and I just want you to give me quick elevator pitches so that we can get through as many as we can.
Sure.
Let's talk about the Colorado Lagoon, because that was a major project for, it seemed like, months. Tell us about that.
Well, the Colorado Lagoon project has actually spanned many years, and my predecessor and Congressman Lowenthal have all been very involved. But that project is actually the community coming together with local officials and actually having an adversarial relationship at first, resulting in what is now an incredibly beautiful project for the community and for the city. So we have, we just completed one phase of the project, which involved really putting some infrastructure in the north shore of the Colorado Lagoon. We put in a pedestrian path, some seating, some observation areas for all the species that are now attracted to that area, birds, wildlife, marine wildlife. And that phase was just complete. And I walk it every single day with my family, sometimes around the lagoon with my dog. And it's just an incredibly beautiful asset for the city. The most important thing is what you can't see, and that's the water quality. The water quality as a result of these restorations has been enhanced dramatically. And we hope that the next phase, which is to open up the channel to connect it to the bay, will provide even better water quality for that body of water, which is going to be great for generations to come in the city.
Great. Let's talk traffic safety. How is that impacting your district as well?
Traffic safety is a really big issue for me. It's not always the sexiest topic, but as a mom of 2 kids, I realize that safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars is really important, and we don't, sometimes we don't spend as much time focused on those things. So we've put in, countless numbers of crosswalks since I took office. We have reconfigured roadways to make traffic more calm, less speeding on those roadways. We've put in traffic lights and signals, and all of those have been as a result of direct community input. Traffic safety is one of the major priorities for our staff, and we're constantly working on traffic issues. So we've done a lot of things to slow traffic in areas and make it better for pedestrians and bicyclists, like the 6th Street Bike Boulevard is a project that we're going to be implementing later this summer, and that's designed to allow for slower traffic when we have vehicles and bicycles on the same roadway. So we're very excited about that.
Right, and I know one thing you were excited about, and I actually brought my granddaughter, was the library hours changing, and you're excited about that as well.
I am. I ran for office because I was the only person with young kids. I wasn't planning on running for office, but nobody that was running had young kids. And I felt like my demographic needed to be represented. And what is my demographic? My demographic is a working parent who has to work to pay the bills, who wants to take advantage of city services. And when city services aren't open on the weekends or extended hours, it makes it really hard for working families to take advantage of it. So one of the first things I did was use some of my infrastructure programming money that's discretionary to do a pilot program to see how many people go to the library on Sundays. And the response was overwhelming. So we started with Bayshore Library, and now we have Sunday hours at 4 libraries. And that was directly as a result of, I want to be able to take my kids to the library every once in a while. As a mother, I should be able to do that. And now mothers who work like me and fathers who work are able to take their kids to the library on Saturdays and Sundays.
And I know youth involvement in the community overall is something that you're passionate about. What are your thoughts there?
Well, we try to involve the youth as much as we can. We did the 2nd youth participatory budgeting project in the entire United States, where it turned out to be $100,000, and we told the youth, if you had a park improvement that you could make, what would it be? And the youth committee got together, they voted on some projects, they did outreach at farmers market, and then we had votes at local middle schools and high schools that were actually administered by the city clerk. We had over 800 participants vote, and as a a result of that, we have a park improvement. We brought a basketball court, a sport court to our local park. But in addition to that, we do youth empowerment workshops. I do an anti-bully event every year. I know firsthand, as someone who learned to speak English at the age of 7, who wasn't always as hip and with it as everybody else, the impact that bullying can have on kids and their self-confidence. So every single year, we host a bully workshop where we try to empower kids to have confidence. And so involving the youth as much as I can is something that's a priority for me. We have several interns this summer. They're all high school students or middle school students. So our office is basically fueled by youth, and we love it.
Do you find yourself getting college interns, such as what we have here in the studio, wanting to be a part of the team? Because I would imagine your energy is infectious and more would want to be a part of what you've got going on to just make a difference.
We have an amazing team of interns, middle school, high school, college, and we always have a lot of interns. We just had one graduating with her AA degree. We have a Cal State Long Beach intern that now it's turned into an actual paid position in our office. So we take interns, and yes, you know what? It's the feeling is mutual. I energize them, but they energize me, and they're the big part. I wouldn't do this job without them with me.
I feel the same. I mean, we were talking during the break. We heard cheering in the back, and it's because even here at PadNet, we embrace our interns and we try to help people rise up to the next level. And as the executive director here, that makes me feel really good to know that people start here, but they don't necessarily end here, and that's not the point. It's to be better while they're here. So
absolutely,
sure
I completely agree. We try to do promoting from the inside up and giving people opportunities to expand their horizons and I try to give them a safe place. Like, we're going to make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn.
Good for you. Now, we've talked about youth and the library and other things such as that, but I know also a passion for yours is the success of small businesses in your district, and you have many. Most of which I frequent as much as I can when I'm hanging out in the 3rd District. But I know also congruent with that are the employees of those businesses. And as you know, I've been involved with different things working with our constituents that we serve here that are low income in getting livable wage jobs. So when you think about business and you think about the employees, what thoughts come to your mind about how we can make that happen for everyone in a good way?
Well, I think the ability to earn a livable wage is a right, and it's important for us to do what we can to help people get on that ladder of success. And I've always been a big believer in that. Just my own background, and I was raised by a single mom who worked several jobs, and I've worked since I was 14. I've worked in many minimum wage jobs, so I understand the importance of providing opportunities and being a city that provides opportunities. I was very happy to support, of course, it was a statewide mandate, but even leading up to the discussions of minimum wage in the city, I always believe that we need to have a path towards increasing wages, because a literature that you read, it's getting more and more difficult for people to make it even on minimum wage. And so I think providing those opportunities is important. We've done some things as a city, and I'm always open to hearing what more we can do. But our unemployment rate as a city is lower than it's been in many, many years, decades. And we have really tried to focus on providing incentives for local jobs. And I think that's a very important thing for us to continue to do. I know when we talk about local jobs, we're talking about what are we doing specifically for Long Beach residents, and then in terms of local, what are we doing for regional local residents. I think it's very important that we remain a very good and noted regional employer. As a city, we need to be known as a good and thriving regional employer. Beyond that, the more we can focus on providing our own residents with jobs, the better for all of us. A lot of times people will say, should we designate it by zip code, for example, in terms of how many jobs? We want to find the best pool of candidates that we can, while at the same time incentivizing and promoting local jobs. So sometimes you have to broaden the net a bit in order to get the best pool of employment candidates, but at the end of the day, we need to continue our responsible development projects so that we can have more job opportunities. And we need to, with every single project, almost on a case by case, ask ourselves, are we doing everything we can in terms of outreach, education, incentives to provide local hire? And I'm committed to that.
Right, well said, and thank you. When you think about the fact that you're about to give up the rest of your life for another 4 years and running for re-election, what inspires you to want to do that? In the 2 minutes that we have left, why do you think that it's so important for you to continue what you've started for another 4 years?
Well, I have to tell you, the decision wasn't a no-brainer for me. I love this city and I love that I'm raising my kids here, but the service and the requirement for the service is significant.
I'm sure.
And so for me, the idea of being in politics isn't such a grand idea that it outweighs all the work and sacrifice that comes with it. So I really talked a lot with my family, and we had a family meeting, and in the beginning the vote was 3-1, you should absolutely run again. And I was the one that was on the fence. But the more we continued to talk about it and really talking with my husband and seeing what's going on a national scale, I've done some pretty great things for my community in my capacity over the last 3 years. And I would hate to have someone come in after me while I have projects pending and say, you know what, those aren't important to me. Not that they would or they wouldn't, but I certainly wouldn't want the great work that we've started as a team to not be completed because someone else may have a different ideology. And of course, you know, I watch the national scene, and that's a concern that I have. Above and beyond that, you know, I love this community, and the projects that I've put into place that are going to be completed during my time in office are going to benefit many generations to come. And I'm committed to that. I'm committed to that for the kids who live in my house, who are going to be riding their bikes and driving on these streets as they raise their own families. It's going to be a better community for them.
Well, we in this community appreciate you. We appreciate your leadership and your passion, and the fact that you consider the entire community when you make your decisions, not just your district. And that's important. So kudos to you for being the amazing leader and person that you are. We're out of time, but we hope you come back and visit with us.
Anytime, I'd be happy to. Thank you for asking.
Great, absolutely. I'd like to thank Councilwoman Suzie Price for joining us on today's show. Be sure to follow PadNet TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest updates. We also welcome your comments and thoughts regarding this show as we strive to make Long Beach Lens a favorite source of local news, information, and entertainment. This show has been brought to you with support from the Long Beach Community Action Partnership, helping people, changing lives. Thank you for watching Long Beach Lens.